You ever notice how the highway sounds different after midnight? Not just quiet or different. The hum of your tires, the static on the CB, the way the headlights carve out a tunnel in the dark. Out here, it's just you, the road, and whatever's waiting in the shadows. I've been driving these highways longer than I care to admit, and I've learned something most folks never will. The road remembers you. It knows your name, and sometimes it calls you back. Maybe you're listening to this with a cup of burnt gas station coffee in your hand, dashboard lights flickering, radio tuned to some late-night talk show. Maybe you're just trying to keep your eyes open until the next rest stop. But if you think you know what's out there, you're dead wrong. The things I've seen, hell, the things I've survived aren't the kind of stories you tell around a campfire. These aren't just stories, they're warnings. Tonight, I am going to share 3 of the most disturbing true trucker horror stories I've ever heard. Stories that'll make you think twice before you pull over for a stranger. Stories that'll have you checking your mirrors for more than just cops. The first one's about a hitchhiker who wasn't there, at least, not in any way that makes sense. The second? Let us just say there are rituals on the road you read better off not knowing about. And the last one? Well, the last one's never been told online before. Some folks say it's just a legend. I know better. So buckle up, keep your eyes on the road, and whatever you do, don't let your guard down. Because out here, the line between the ordinary and the unthinkable is thinner than you'd ever believe. If you've ever driven these roads, you might want to check your mirrors tonight. You never know who or what might be following. You get used to the rhythm of the road after a while. The way the world narrows down to the dashboard glow, the hum of the engine, the endless black ribbon stretching out in front of you. There's a comfort in it, a kind of peace that only comes when you're miles from anywhere, just you and the machine and the night. I always liked that part, the solitude, the sense that nothing could touch me out there. But I learned, the hard way, that the road has a memory, and sometimes it remembers things you'd rather forget. It was later than I should have been driving, but the load was behind schedule and dispatch was breathing down my neck. I just crossed into Oklahoma, somewhere between nowhere and nothing, the kind of stretch where the only company you get is the occasional coyote darting across the beams. My cab was warm, the air thick with the smell of old coffee and diesel, the radio playing some old country song about heartbreak and highways. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, how the world felt like it had shrunk down to just me and the road. That's when I saw her. She was standing on the shoulder, thumb out, hair hanging in her face. At first, I thought she was just another lost soul trying to get somewhere, maybe a runaway or someone whose car had broken down. But as I got closer, something felt off. Her clothes were all wrong, like she'd stepped out of a different decade. A faded denim jacket, a long skirt, boots that looked like they'd seen 100 winters. She didn't move, didn't flinch as my headlights swept over her. Just stood there, staring straight ahead. I should have kept driving, but I stopped, and that's when everything changed. I pulled over, rolled down the window, and called out, "You need a ride?" She didn't answer right away, just turned her head, slow and deliberate, and looked at me. Her eyes were dark, too dark, like the kind of night where even the stars are afraid to shine. She nodded once, then walked around to the passenger side. I unlocked the door, and she climbed in without a word. The cab felt colder the second she sat down. I tried to shake it off. Maybe the door had been open too long. Maybe I was just tired. I glanced over at her, tried to make small talk. "Where you headed?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She stared straight ahead, hands folded in her lap. "Home," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Where's home?" I pressed, trying to get a read on her. She didn't answer, just kept staring out the windshield, like she was watching something I couldn't see. I shrugged, put the truck in gear, and pulled back onto the highway. The silence stretched out between us, thick and heavy. I turned the radio down, suddenly aware of how loud it seemed. After a few miles, I tried again. "You got family around here?" She shook her head, slow and deliberate. "Not anymore." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. There was something about the way she said it, flat, final, like a door slamming shut. I glanced over at her again, trying to get a better look. Her skin was pale, almost gray in the dashboard light. Her hair hung in tangled clumps, and her hands looked wrong. Too thin, too still. I cleared my throat, trying to break the tension. You know, it's not safe out here at night. Lot of weirdos on the road. She turned to look at me then, and for a second, I wished she hadn't. Her eyes were bottomless, black as oil, and when she smiled, it was all wrong, too wide, too many teeth. I know, she said. I've met them. I gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles white. The cab felt colder still, like the warmth was being sucked out of the air. I tried to focus on the road, but I could feel her watching me, could feel her eyes burning holes in the side of my head. We drove in silence for what felt like hours, though it couldn't have been more than 20 minutes. Every so often, I'd glance over, half expecting her to be gone. But she was always there, sitting perfectly still, hands folded, eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. Then, just as suddenly as she'd appeared, she spoke. You ever get the feeling you're not alone? I swallowed hard. Sometimes, I admitted, voice barely steady. Comes with the territory, I guess. She smiled again, that same too wide grin. You're never alone out here. Not really. I didn't know what to say to that. I just kept driving, eyes fixed on the road, heart pounding in my chest. The miles slipped by, the darkness pressing in on all sides. I started to wonder if I was dreaming, if maybe I'd dozed off at the wheel, and this was all some kind of nightmare. Then, out of nowhere, she said, You can let me out here. I looked around, confused. We were in the middle of nowhere, no lights, no houses, just endless fields and the distant glow of the moon. You sure? I asked, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. She nodded. This is where I need to be. I pulled over, heart hammering. She opened the door, stepped out into the darkness, and turned to look at me one last time. Thank you, she said, voice echoing in the empty night. Not everyone stops. And then she was gone, just like that. I watched her walk into the darkness, her figure swallowed up by the night. I waited, half expecting her to turn around, to say something else. But she never did. I sat there for a long time, engine idling, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Finally, I shook myself, put the truck in gear, and drove off. But the cab never warmed up again. No matter how high I cranked the heat, there was always a chill in the air, a sense that something was riding with me, just out of sight. I tried to tell myself it was just exhaustion, just my mind playing tricks. But then the dream started. Night after night, I'd see her standing on the side of the road, thumb out, eyes black as midnight. Sometimes she'd be closer, right outside the window, smiling that too wide smile. Sometimes I'd wake up with the taste of cold air in my mouth, the feeling of her eyes on me. I started asking around, talking to other drivers at truck stops, trying to see if anyone else had seen her. Most just laughed it off, said I was working too hard, needed a break. But a few got real quiet. One old-timer, face lined like a road map, just nodded and said, She's been out there a long time. Some folks say she's looking for a way home. Others say she's looking for something else. I never picked up another hitchhiker after that. Couldn't bring myself to stop, no matter how desperate they looked. The road felt different after that night, colder, meaner, like it was watching me. Sometimes, when the night is especially dark and the miles stretch on forever, I catch a glimpse of her in the rearview mirror. Just a flash, a shadow, a memory. But I know she's still out there, waiting for the next ride. Some say she's just a story, a cautionary tale for rookie drivers. But I know better. I saw her. I let her in. And I'll never forget the way the air turned cold, the way her eyes swallowed the light. If you ever see a hitchhiker on a lonely stretch of highway, think twice before you stop. Some rides you don't come back from. Anyone else ever pick up a hitchhiker they wish they hadn't? Drop your stories below. And if you're ever out there, alone in the dark, keep your doors locked and your eyes on the road, because you never know who or what you might let in. Funny thing about the road, no matter how many miles you put behind you, the stories always catch up. Every truck stop, every greasy spoon diner, every late-night CB channel has its own collection of legends. Some are just tall tales, the kind you swap to kill time between loads. But others, well, they stick with you. They get under your skin, make you wonder what's really out there in the dark. You ever hear about the Phantom Convoy? Some drivers swear they've seen a line of trucks rolling through the fog, headlights off, engines silent as the grave. They say if you try to follow, you'll never find your way back. Or the story of the woman in white who appears in your passenger seat, asking for a ride home, and if you say yes, you'll never make your next stop. There's even talk of a stretch of highway in Nevada where the signs change when you're not looking, leading you in circles until you run out of gas, or worse. It's easy to laugh these stories off when you're sitting in a crowded diner, coffee in hand, surrounded by the noise and warmth of other drivers. But out there, alone in the cab, with nothing but the hum of the tires and the endless dark pressing in, it's different. The road feels alive, like it's watching, like it remembers every secret, every mistake. And if you think that last story was unsettling, buckle up. The next one, it's why some truckers never drive at night. There are things out here that don't want to be seen, things that make you question what's real and what's just a trick of the headlights. Patterns, rules, rituals. Some say there's a reason certain rest stops are always empty after midnight. Heard of the Phantom Convoy? Let me know if you want that story next. But for now, keep your lights on and your wits about you. Because the next story isn't just a warning, it's a lesson in what happens when curiosity gets the better of you. I used to think the worst thing about trucking was the exhaustion. The kind that seeps into your bones, makes your eyelids heavy, your thoughts slow and syrupy. When you're new to the job, you push yourself too hard, thinking you can outdrive the fatigue. That's what I was doing that night, chasing the next delivery, telling myself I could make it just a few more miles. But the road had other plans. It was somewhere in the middle of Kansas, the kind of flat, endless stretch where the sky feels too big and the world too empty. My eyes kept drifting shut, the lines on the road blurring together. I knew I was pushing my luck. When I finally saw the blue sign for a rest stop, it felt like a lifeline. I pulled off, heart pounding, promising myself I'd just close my eyes for a few minutes. The place was almost too perfect. Clean, bright lights, a row of vending machines humming quietly, and oddly more trucks than I expected for that hour. I counted 7 rigs, all parked in a perfect circle at the far end of the lot. I remember thinking it was strange, but exhaustion makes you ignore things you shouldn't. I found a spot a little ways off, killed the engine, and let the silence settle in. I was just about to recline my seat when I noticed something else. The trucks in the circle, none of them had their lights on, but I could see shadows moving inside the cabs. Figures shifting back and forth like they were waiting for something. I told myself it was just my imagination, that I was overtired and seeing things. But then I saw the symbols. They were drawn in chalk around the circle, strange, looping shapes that made my skin crawl. I'd never seen anything like them before. I tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe it was some kind of inside joke, a prank for rookies. But the longer I looked, the less funny it seemed. I should have just locked my doors and gone to sleep. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially on the road. I got out, stretching my legs, telling myself I'd just hit the restroom and be done with it. The air was colder than it should have been, sharp and biting, and the silence felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. As I walked past the circle of trucks, I heard voices low, murmuring, almost chanting. I slowed down, trying to make out the words, but they slipped through my mind like oil. The drivers were standing in a loose ring, heads bowed, hands clasped in front of them. One of them looked up as I passed a big guy with a beard and eyes that seemed too bright in the darkness. "You lost, rookie?" he asked, voice flat and unfriendly. I shook my head, trying to play it cool. Just needed a break. Long haul from Denver. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded toward the restroom. Best get inside. Don't wander. I didn't need to be told twice. I hurried inside, splashed cold water on my face, tried to shake off the feeling that I'd stumbled into something I wasn't supposed to see. When I came back out, the chanting had stopped. The drivers were gone, but the trucks were still there, engines idling now, headlights off. I could see movement in the shadows, something shifting, too big to be a person. I froze, heart hammering. One of the truck's doors opened, and a figure stepped out. Not a driver, at least, not anymore. It was tall, impossibly thin, with limbs that bent the wrong way. Its face was hidden in shadow, but I could feel its eyes on me, cold and hungry. I backed away, trying not to make a sound. My truck suddenly felt a million miles away. I heard footsteps behind me, real ones, heavy and deliberate. I turned to see the bearded driver from before, his face pale and drawn. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "Not tonight." "What is this?" I managed, voice shaking. "What are you doing out here?" He glanced over his shoulder, eyes wide with fear. "There are rules on this road. Old rules. We keep them, or we don't make it home." I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The thing by the trucks was getting closer, its movements jerky and unnatural. The other drivers had formed a circle again, this time around me. Their faces were blank, eyes empty. "You have to choose," the bearded man said. "Join us, or face it alone." I didn't understand, but I could feel the thing's presence pressing in, cold and suffocating. The drivers began to chant again, louder this time, the words scraping at my mind. The symbols on the ground started to glow, faint and sickly. I did the only thing I could think of. I stepped into the circle. The drivers closed ranks around me, their voices rising in a fevered pitch. The thing outside the circle howled, a sound that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. It circled us, clawing at the air, but it couldn't cross the symbols. I don't know how long it lasted. Time seemed to stretch and snap, the world reduced to chanting voices and the things in human wails. When it was over, the drivers fell silent. The thing was gone, the night suddenly too quiet. The bearded man looked at me, his eyes hollow. "You're marked now," he said. "You know the rules. Keep them, or next time, you're on your own." They broke the circle, climbed back into their trucks, and drove off, one by one. I stood there, shaking, trying to make sense of what had happened. When I finally got back to my cab, I found a symbol drawn on my door, the same one from the circle. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely start the engine. I drove until sunrise, not daring to stop, not daring to look in the mirrors. The air in the cab felt wrong, heavy with the memory of what I'd seen. I tried to tell myself it was just a nightmare, a trick of exhaustion and fear. But the symbol on my door didn't wash off, no matter how hard I scrubbed. After that night, I started noticing things. Other drivers with the same symbol, nodding at me in truck stops, eyes haunted. Rest stops that were always empty after midnight, no matter how busy the highway. Stories whispered over coffee about things that hunt the roads, about rituals and bargains and the price of breaking the rules. I never saw the bearded man again, but sometimes, late at night, I hear the chanting in my dreams. I wake up with the taste of cold air in my mouth, the feeling that something is waiting just outside the cab. I keep the symbol on my door now, just in case. I follow the rules, even if I don't understand them. There are things out here that don't want to be seen. Things that wait for the curious, the careless, the ones who think the road is just asphalt and paint. I thought I was just tired. But what I saw that night, I'll never sleep the same again. There are rules out here. Break them, and you might not make it home. Ever seen something at a rest stop you can't explain? Share it below. And if you ever find yourself at a rest stop after midnight, pay attention to the trucks, the symbols, the silence. Some secrets are better left alone. Every trucker knows there are rules to the road that never make it into the manuals. Some are just common sense: don't cut off a rig, always flash your lights to say thanks, never park in another driver's favorite spot. But there are other rules, the kind you only learn after enough miles, enough close calls, Enough nights when the darkness feels just a little too thick. Some rules are written in blood, not ink. You hear them whispered at truck stops, passed along like old family recipes. Don't pick up hitchhikers on Route 17 after midnight. Never answer a CB call that comes in on Channel 19 at 3:33 a.m. If you see a truck with no company markings and its lights off, don't try to pass it no matter how slow it's going. And if you ever find a symbol scratched into your door, don't try to remove it. It's there for a reason. There's a kind of camaraderie among truckers, a brotherhood built on shared miles and shared dangers. We look out for each other, swap stories, warn the rookies about the things that don't make sense. But there's a line between what we talk about and what we keep to ourselves. Some things are too strange, too dangerous to share with just anyone. The last story I'm about to tell you, I almost didn't include it, but you need to hear it. It's the kind of story that changes the way you see the road forever. The kind that makes you wonder what's really out there, just beyond the reach of your headlights. This one's never been shared online before, and maybe there's a reason for that. If you know any unwritten rules, drop them in the comments. You might save a life. And if you're still with me, buckle up. The next story is the one that keeps even the old-timers awake at night. There's a kind of freedom you only find on the open road. The world shrinks down to the hum of the engine, the glow of the dash, the endless black ribbon stretching out ahead. Most nights, that freedom is a comfort or reminder that you're in control, that you can outrun anything if you just keep moving. But every now and then, the road reminds you that you're not as alone as you think. That's what happened to me the night I met the black-eyed convoy. It started like any other run. I was hauling a load of auto parts from Amarillo to Albuquerque. Nothing special, just another long stretch of highway and a few too many hours without sleep. The CB was alive with the usual chatter drivers swapping jokes, warnings about speed traps, the occasional ghost story to keep things interesting. I remember laughing at some rookie's tale about a haunted rest stop, thinking I'd heard it all before. Breaker 19, you got your ears on? I called out, just to see who was out there. A couple of voices came back, friendly enough. We talked about the weather, the best places to grab a burger, the usual. It felt good, that sense of community, even if we were all just voices in the dark. I was somewhere west of Tucumcari when I first saw them. 3 trucks, running in perfect formation, maybe a quarter-mile ahead. At first, I didn't think much of it. Convoys aren't exactly rare out here. But as I got closer, I noticed something strange. The trucks were identical. Same make, same model, same dull gray paint. No company logos, no numbers, not even a speck of dirt on the trailers. And none of them had license plates. I slowed down, letting the distance stretch out. Something about the way they moved, too smooth, too synchronized, set my nerves on edge. I reached for the CB, figuring I'd see if anyone else had eyes on them. Anyone else see that convoy up ahead? I asked. Silence. Not even static. The channel was dead. I tried again, switching frequencies, but it was like my radio had gone mute. I glanced at the clock, 3:33 a.m. Figures. That's when the weird stuff always happens. I thought about pulling off at the next exit, but there wasn't one for miles. So I did what any stubborn old trucker would do. I kept driving, telling myself it was just a bunch of weirdos out for a joyride. But then the lead truck's brake lights flashed, and the whole convoy slowed to a crawl. I had no choice but to pass them. As I pulled alongside, I glanced over at the driver. That's when I saw his eyes black, bottomless, like 2 holes punched through his face. He didn't blink, didn't even seem to breathe, just stared straight ahead, hands locked on the wheel. I sped up, heart pounding, trying not to look at the other trucks. But I couldn't help myself. Each driver was the same, expressionless, black-eyed, skin pale as wax. None of them acknowledged me. None of them even seemed alive. I floored it, desperate to put some distance between us. For a while, it worked. The convoy faded into my mirrors, swallowed by the night. I tried the CB again, but all I got was static. That's when the headlights appeared behind me. 3 sets, perfectly spaced, gaining fast. I checked my speed 80, then 90. Still, they closed the gap, engines roaring louder than any diesel I'd ever heard. I grabbed the CB, voice shaking. "This is Red Dog, westbound on I-40. Anyone got a copy? I need help now." Nothing. Just that same dead silence. The trucks were right on my tail now, their headlights so bright they turned the world white. I could see the lead driver's face in my mirror, those black eyes locked on mine. I swerved, trying to shake them, but they matched every move, never breaking formation. Then the world changed. The road seemed to stretch and twist, the lines on the asphalt writhing like snakes. The air grew thick, heavy, hard to breathe. My headlights flickered, and for a moment, I saw things moving in the darkness, shapes too big, too fast, to be anything human. I slammed the pedal to the floor, praying the engine would hold. The trucks behind me began to honk, a deep, bone-rattling sound that made my teeth ache. It wasn't a normal horn, it was something else, something that felt alive. I spotted an exit up ahead, barely marked, just a faded sign and a patch of gravel. I yanked the wheel, tires screaming, and barreled off the highway. The convoy followed, engines howling, headlights burning holes in the night. The exit led to a narrow, winding road, trees pressing in on both sides. I could feel the trucks closing in, their presence like a weight on my chest. I tried the CB one last time, voice raw with fear. "Please, someone help me. They're right behind me." This time, I got an answer. A voice, low and distorted, crackling through the static. "You shouldn't have looked. Don't look back." I almost laughed, the sound wild and desperate. "What do you mean? Who are you?" But the voice was gone, replaced by a sound like wind howling through broken glass. I risked a glance in the mirror. The trucks were closer now, so close I could see the drivers' faces identical, black-eyed, mouths twisted in silent screams. The world outside the cab seemed to warp and flicker, shadows crawling across the windshield. I knew I couldn't outrun them, so I did the only thing I could. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop in the middle of the road. The convoy screeched to a halt behind me, engines idling, headlights burning. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the lead driver stepped out of his cab, moving with a jerky, unnatural gait. He walked up to my window, face inches from the glass. Up close, his eyes were worse bottomless pits, swallowing the light. He didn't speak, just stared, unblinking, as if waiting for something. I don't know how long we sat like that. Seconds, minutes, hours, it all blurred together. Then, as suddenly as they'd appeared, the drivers turned and walked back to their trucks. The engines roared to life, and the convoy pulled away, disappearing into the night. I sat there, shaking, unable to move. My hands were locked on the wheel, knuckles white. When I finally managed to start the engine, the world felt different, thinner, like the darkness was pressing in from all sides. I made it to Albuquerque just after sunrise, running on fumes and adrenaline. I tried to tell myself it was just a nightmare, a trick of exhaustion and fear. But the memory of those black eyes haunted me, followed me into every shadow. After that night, I changed. I stopped driving at night, stopped answering the CB after midnight. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye, shapes in the mirrors, headlights that vanished when I looked straight at them. I became paranoid, always looking over my shoulder, always waiting for the convoy to return. I started asking around, trying to find someone who'd seen what I'd seen. Most drivers just laughed, said I needed a vacation. But a few got real quiet, eyes darting away. One old-timer, face lined with 1,000 miles of worry, just nodded and said, "They're out there. Always have been. Some roads belong to them." I started noticing patterns, stories about convoys that appear out of nowhere, trucks with no plates, drivers with eyes like midnight. Some folks say they're ghosts, the spirits of drivers who never made it home. Others say there's something older, something that's always hunted the highways. I don't know what they are. All I know is, if you ever see a convoy of identical trucks, no plates, no markings, and drivers who never blink, don't look back. Don't ever look back. Sometimes, late at night, I hear them. The sound of engines in the distance, the echo of horns that don't belong to any truck I've ever known. I keep my doors locked, my lights on, and I never, ever answer the CB after 3:33 a.m. I thought I was alone out there. I was wrong. Anyone else ever see something they can't explain on the road? Let's hear your stories. And if you ever driving through the night and you spot a convoy that doesn't make sense, keep your eyes forward, your hands on the wheel, and whatever you do, don't look back. Because some things on the road are hunting for more than just a ride. So, maybe you're listening to this from the safety of your living room, the glow of your phone or laptop keeping the shadows at bay. Or maybe you're out there right now, parked at a lonely rest stop, engine ticking as it cools, the world outside your window nothing but darkness and the occasional sweep of headlights. Either way, you've heard the stories. You know now that the road is more than just pavement and painted as a living thing, full of secrets, dangers, and rules that most folks will never understand. Next time you're driving at night, remember, the road remembers you. Every mile, every choice, every time you stop when you shouldn't or ignore a warning you can quite explain. The stories I've shared tonight aren't just meant to scare you, they meant to remind you that some dangers don't show up on any map. Some things out there are older than the highways themselves, and they don't care if you believe in them or not. Maybe you've got your own story, a strange encounter, a set of headlights that wouldn't go away, a voice on the CB that didn't sound quite right. Drop your theories, stories, and what you want to hear next in the comments. I read every single one, and trust me, you're not alone. This channel is more than just a place for scary stories, it's a place for survivors. For people who know that sometimes the scariest things are the ones you can't explain. And if you're a trucker, or you've ever spent a night out on the open road, stay safe out there. Watch for the signs, keep the unwritten rules, and never take the quiet for granted. There are more stories out there, some too disturbing to tell. Yet, if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You never know when the next warning might save your life. And remember, the comfort of home is just a thin wall away from the unknown. The road is always waiting, always watching. And if you ever see headlights in your rear view that won't go away, don't say I didn't warn you.